All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dynamic Zones launch call. Uh, this call is going to be a real simple call. Essentially, what we do on this call is walk you guys through the software. Um, Number one, number two, we will talk to you, show you how to set it up, the features, kind of what they, what they mean, how they utilize. That way you understand, the ins and outs of the actual settings of the software so you can, make the changes, and be able to adjust it the way you want to. This video is again, this is a call is being recorded. It will be dropped into the software video section. That way you always have access to it to be able to go back and look at some of the features and things we talked about here. And then later on, we'll show you a couple trade setups. I'll show you one from today that we took on the live trade call. We'll also John will take over and he'll show you anything that he wants to show you. And then later on, we'll start to have some strategy videos where we actually have some videos that show specific strategies, with the software, high probability setups, things of that nature. So we won't be doing that on this call. That'll be more or less, like I said, on the in the future. We'll drop specific videos for that. All right. Of course, as always, if you have questions, feel free to drop it in the chat or feel free to unmute your mic. Everybody has the capability to unmute their mic and to ask any specific questions they may have. All right. So without further ado, dynamic zones. John, you want to kind of give the idea behind dynamic zones? I know it's your baby. Uh, just kind of talk about the dynamic zones and just kind of the thought process behind dynamic zones as well as well, yeah, just dynamic zones itself.
Yeah, dynamic zones. Um, so everybody is so focused on, especially with SMC, like the order block and all these different blocks and like all these different terms for supply and demand and all that stuff. When the areas that price gravitates to is based off of a lot of different factors that are not just sitting here on a um, candlestick chart. So, like I always talk about, candlesticks lie, a lot. You can get lost in candlestick movement, but it's heading towards specific zones that are, you know, kind of like a grab price on every single time frame. So it's not just one, two, or three time frames that these things go to. On every individual time frame, specific zones are being created constantly as like a supply and demand type deal. Um, that we don't see. And they're not based off of a one candlestick open here to one candlestick open or like an order block, the lowest down candle, lowest up candle. That's it's not necessarily what they're for. So I wanted to figure out a way to create those type of zones um so they could be visually represented because there's a lot of different factors that go into them. Tough to do, but Nate being a genius and some of the developers, helped us out and we got it to exactly where we want it. Premise behind it, and it takes a lot of the noise out of our trading, and we know how to read levels. So the EQ of these levels, what type of levels are presented inside of these zones are going to be more like higher probability than if you're just looking all over the chart for say an OG or an OGC. You can focus on what's inside the zone or just the zone itself, the high, low, and the EQ. It's gonna really add some fuel to your trading. Now, since it's always looking for these zones, some are gonna pop up that you're not gonna want to use every single one of them. You do want to still add confluence to it, um, just like what we're teaching with. delivery and everything else you're learning. But as you back test it and you go through it, you're going to see that, sometimes just trusting the zone is enough because they're extremely powerful. So that's kind of an overview of them. Like I'm sure I'll show you the buy today was, directly off of a zone or a few zones. And it's been really nice learning this system myself from the zones and seeing how we're turning around, pretty much pinpoint from all of them. So I'm excited for everybody to see it. But yeah, go ahead, Nate, if you want to add anything.
No, that's it. Like I said, want you to give your premise behind it all. I'll go through and just kind of demonstrate it, and then like I said, I'll pass the screen over to John. That way he can show some of the things that he wants to show, and then we'll leave it open for questions. All right. So dynamic zones. All right. Uh, we're on here on NASDAQ, as you know, you guys love to trade NASDAQ. So we'll kind of open up the settings for dynamic zones and kind of walk through it. So you've got, this first section here, which is labeled dynamic zones. You can actually add up to 3 different dynamic zones based on time frame. So it doesn't matter what time frame you're on, you can add multiple time frames. Let's go down to the 1 minute time frame. I like the 1 minute. All right. Go down to the 1 minute here. And so you can add whatever time frame you want here. So right now I've been utilizing the 3, the 5, and the 15. And so if I turn on, you simply check mark to turn on 3 minute. All right. There's that 3 minute. All right. You can turn that off or on. You can turn on the 5 minute. All right. So we'll turn on that 5 minute. You can see now the 5 minute has overlap. And then you can turn on the 15 minute. All right. And you can see the 15 minute has popped up. All right. 15 minutes popped up. So again, you can adjust these however you want. You can have 1, 2 on, 3 on. All right. Of course, we'll just leave it 3 minute on right now. You got your supply and demand essentially. So as we all know, demand is the lower, supply the higher. So you can literally turn these off or on. All right. And then also you've got 2 different colors. Now, what do the 2 different colors mean? So based on the color code, will tell you if the zone um, has been retested or not. All right. You can tell if the zone has been retested or not. So for example, you can see here, this zone was created and retested. You can see that one's it's lighter here. So it's been retested so that you can adjust that so that you understand. And again, you can turn it off if you want to as well. It's really up to you. But it's just there so that you can, again, you can come here and turn the gradient, the opacity down to 0. That way it doesn't show. So it's really up to you. But it will show you when that zone has been retested. All right. That way you know the difference between a fresh zone and then a zone that's already been retested. Of course, a retested zone is a lot stronger. All right. If it's been retested, especially multiple times. All right. So the possibility of it rejecting that zone again is high. All right. Uh, so that's that. All right. Now you got the dynamic zone height. All right. So now you can adjust the height of these zones based on what you want to see. We've done thorough back testing, and John came up with the 0.4. Again, at default, you're going to have it at 0.1, and you'll be able to see that the zone changes height, and then other zones pop up as well. All right. When you go up to 0.4, it can adjust those zones, and you'll have some that disappear, and you have more accurate zones. All right. So 0.4, from what we've seen, has been the most accurate, all right, and precise. All right. So that's dynamic zones. Real simple on the settings there. All right, turn this off here. And I'm gonna come back down here to smart dynamic zones. So smart dynamic zones, similar, except for it takes up to 3 different time frames, and it will what? It will create a smart dynamic zone for you, which is a combined dynamic zone. I use the 3, 5, 15. So simply you put this in here. You want to go 3 space 5 space 15. All right. You see, I've got the supply and demands turned on, yada, yada, yada. Demand, of course, is lower. It's green. Supply, higher, it's red. We click that, turns on. All right. And you can see here, all right, it gives the EQ of the smart dynamic zone, not just one zone. All right, but you can see here the overlap. We saw this earlier. The 3 and the 5 were here. And you see now you got both the 3 and the 5 together and the EQ of it. All right. Same thing there. We saw that where these overlapped when I put the 3 and 5 on there by itself. And you can see what? You can see that now they're on there together. And you can see where the different bounds are. 3 is from there and up. 5 is from here and up. All right. And again, if you go back and just add on the 3 and the 5 like we had earlier, you'll see it's the exact same. There it is. All right. So it just shows the overlap. All right. So the smart dynamic zones, just put it all together for you, show you the EQ. All right. The dynamic zone height, whatever you have it here, it's also going to be the same for the smart dynamic zones. All right. Also going to be the same for the smart dynamic zones. All right. Now, next is liquidity. All right. So we wanted to add it in some more additional confluence. So we added in liquidity. Some of you guys may be used to seeing this, from another tool. But simply put, you can now highlight your liquidity. All right. This liquidity is based off of what I call it algorithm principle, because it's not based off of anything that I've seen before or that I was taught on social media or YouTube. All right. But you can come in here and adjust what liquidity levels you want to look at. For indices, I typically have mine on 15-minute. Gold, I typically have mine on 30-minute. But if you want to look at the hour liquidity levels, you can come here and turn these to an hour. All right. And it's going to label them for you. So you can see buy side and sell side liquidity levels. All right. On the hour time frame. All right. You can also come here and change the color if you want to. It's all up to you. All right. So that is that right there. Is your liquidity levels. And we'll show how this works together. I actually used the liquidity levels and the smart zones today for today's trade on NASDAQ. We'll go over that. All right. Next is what we've all have been having, I won't say a tough time setting up, but definitely had to put in some time to set up, which is our what? Our mini day and micro day templates. All right. So mini days, select 4H for 4 hour, and it will automatically bring up your 4 hour template for you. All right. Already constructed for you. We've added in Saturday. So that last little section, that sixth 4 hour candle is going to be white. That way it stands out from the other ones. But we still only, we still mainly look for or look at our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday candles. But that sixth day, that Saturday, all right, does come in handy and is utilized, from time to time. All right, is utilized from time to time, as you can see here. All right, order block from Saturday, you can see here, was definitely used right before the weekend. Right before the weekend, that's where you got your pullback from. So it is utilized, and you can utilize it for trade setups. All right, so that is in there. All right, so that's the 4 hour standpoint. You can adjust the borders. Again, these colors, the default colors are all based off of the color that John gave out. So you can adjust. You can turn off the background. I'm sorry. Right now there is no background. If you want a background, you can come in here and I think you can come in here and adjust it. Let me see here. Oh, no, no, no. I'm sorry. Yeah, you should be able to adjust it. Oh, that's what I'm sorry. My fault, guys. My fault, guys. I had the smart coloring option on. So let's do this again. Let me just go over the zones themselves. So here are that's not what I want. There we go. Here's a 4 hour. All right. You can adjust them to whatever color you want to. All right. You won't really see the difference between the two. All right. You can adjust the color, what color you want them. You can adjust the opacity. All right. You can turn it off the background if you don't want a background. All right. And just have the borders. All right. You can have the background on and turn off the borders. Really up to you on how you want to do it. All right. The open and the EQ, you can turn those off and on for each mini day. All right. And then if you want to control the prices, come down here, open prices. Let's say you want all the open prices to be white. All right. And then you want the EQs to be pink. There you go. And so you adjust that, and you now have all that set up. All right. Same thing works for the 1 hour. All right. There's your 1 hour setups. All right. They're all green. You can adjust them. 48-minute. There's your 48-minute setups. 12-minute setups. I don't think you don't see them on 5 minutes. Go down to the, oh, there they popped up. All right. So you see how you have the 12-minute setups? All right. Now, this right here just allows for you to adjust and manipulate everything the way that you want to see it. All right, the way that you want to see it all. All right. Now, if you want the standard, which is the color code that John gave out when he first introduced boxes, or as we've now turned, we've started talking about mini days and micro days. All right. You can come down here and select the smart coloring option, and it will override everything and automatically put everything on there for you. Only thing you can really adjust is your open price and your EQ. But you can see here that it color codes everything based on the color code that John gave. All right. So you got your days. If you come down here and add the hour, the 1 hour, of course, there's only 4 1 hour days, but you can see here they're color coded Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. All right. 48 minutes. All right. You can see here they're color coded, but they're actually shaded in. All right. They actually have a background. All right. Why? Just so you have the differential. All right. When we trade, as John taught us, the 4 hour and the 48-minute go together in one template, as you see here. And so you can tell that you got the 48-minute, they have a slight background color to them, and then the 4 hours don't. That way you can kind of differentiate between the two. They don't just blend in, so things stand out a little bit more for you. All right. And then when you're trading the next template, which is the 1 hour and the 12-minute template together, there you go. Your 1 hours are graded, and then your 12 minutes, I'm sorry, have the what? They have the color built in as far as the background. So you can see here from a 1 hour time frame, you can see here we're in let's see, red starts Monday. So you got, oh, this is 4 hour, I'm sorry. Is that the 4 hour? Did I change that? Let me go back. Oh, here we go. 1 hour. Okay, cool. So we've got the 1 hour here. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This is Thursday. And you see Thursday took the low of the mini week, 1 hour inside of the micro 12-minute, what? Wednesday. All right. So the 1 hour and the 12-minute to go together, and then the 4 hour and the 48-minute go together. All right. Those are the templates, the way John has taught us, as far as how they all work together. All right. And again, when you select the smart coloring option, it has the color code for you. And then from there, you would just adjust the EQ or the open price. All right, as far as those colors. Time zone is here as well. You can adjust. All right. And that is simply it. That is the whole indicator itself. I will, as far as how all the settings work, I'm going to show you the trade setup from this morning and how it all played out. All right. So first things first, I'm going to turn on Smart Dynamic Zones. I've got it set at 0.4. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to turn on the template that I use the most, which is the 4 hour and the 48-minute template. Open price. That's fine. 48 minutes. I don't really care about the EQ. I just care about the opens. So I turn those off. And GMT -5 is fine. So everything's set. You can see here I got a smart zone of 3, 5, and 15. So that's going to be, the way this works as far as the smart dynamic zones is if there's 2 or 3 overlapping dynamic zones, that creates a smart zone when they're overlapping. All right. And then they're overlapping, you typically have a higher probability for a higher reaction off of smart dynamic zone than just off of a standard dynamic zone. All right. But again, it's up to you on how you want to use it. That's why we give you the option for both dynamic zones or a smart dynamic zone. All right. I'm going to turn on my liquidity as well. So I had it set to 15 minutes. So this is typically the settings that I will have when I trade indices. 3 to 5, 3, 5, 15 smart dynamic zone, 15-minute bullish and bearish liquidity levels, the 4 hour and 48-minute template with the smart coloring. All right, we turn that to on. All right. Let me go through the trade setup here. Essentially, we had already identified, all right, that the overall trend was a buy. All right. Price gapped down, all right, to fill in these fair value gaps here. All right. We had a what? Rejection off of a smart dynamic zone down here, reversed back up. All right. This here is bearish candle before we broke these lows right here. When we close back above that, that is what I call it, and what I've been taught as a bullish change of character. All right. So by 8 a.m., we were what? By 8 a.m., we were, let me go to 8 a.m. real quick. We'll just go back to the bar replay. By 8 a.m., boom. All right, there's 8 a.m. right there. We'll just go through the bar replay real quick on this trade setup. By 8 a.m., all right, we had closed back above that that area, that order block I told you, and therefore we had a 15-minute change of character. All right, you can see a couple things here. All right, we are in mini Thursday here. All right, you can see here that micro Wednesday was a turnaround. All right, if you went to the 15-minute time frame, you can also see that there was a 15-minute fair value gap right there as well. All right, and not only is the 15-minute fair value gap there, but you can see that, and I didn't talk about this on the call, but let's just turn this off right quick here. But you can also see that when you include the gap for the day there, all right, you can see that there's overlap on that gap from a standpoint of a what? Inversion area. All right. So very strong area there. So let's go back down here. Let's go back to the 1 minute time frame. All right. So you can see here, we have reversed from there in what? Micro Wednesday. All right. And so now the whole setup was to wait for our entry. There was a 15-minute fair value gap here, another one here. All right. We waiting to see if we got a reaction off of those. For me, if we close below this fair value gap here, the larger one, the trade is invalidated. All right. So let's go through and watch the trade pan out. You can see here that we're at what? We're at the EQ of the mini day, the mini Thursday. We're at the EQ there. You can see price reversing off the EQ. All right. Let's go back and look here. Now let's come down here and look at our trade. All right. Price came down. We swept sell side liquidity. All right. Which was also the low of pre-market into the fair value gap, the inverted fair value gap. You can see we never closed out of it. We never closed. The inversion area is right here. This is where the gap from the week and this 15-minute fair value gap where they overlap. And you can see that's the inversion area. We never closed below it. CSD entry right there. Stop below the lows. And I've got areas to aim for. For me, you got back to the high of pre-market, which is this buy side liquidity here. The next TP, back to the high of, what is this, mini Wednesday, which is also the high of London. All right, you got this buy side liquidity here, which is where you have this wick that rejected this what? This smart dynamic zone. We aimed a little higher than the fair value gap. We closed out a little bit before, but you can see here how the trade then turned around and panned out. And essentially, we utilize one tool here to map out the entire trade. I purposely did not look at any other tool. Use this one tool to map out the entire trade. All right. And that was the trade setup for today. All right. This is what I was looking at on my other screen. All right. This is what I was looking at on my other screen. And what why I took the trade based on the confirmations that we had. All right. And you can see here a TGIF trade, as I called it in the chat, as John calls it, TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. This is one of those trades where Friday takes the low of the week and the high of the week. So micro Friday was the low and the high of the micro week inside of what? Inside of mini Thursday. All right. And you see now, as we've stretched all the way back down and taken out that low. And look, we're still respecting the fair value gap, but we're also still respecting what? What is this? That same smart dynamic zone. It swept sell side liquidity again, this time from our original entry. Rejected that dynamic zone, and it's already back up. It's already back up and in a big way. Already back up. What is that? Rejection there, from that rejection there. Yeah, already back up over 100 points. All right. So that is the this is dynamic zones. Like I said, real intuitive. Puts everything in place for you. So you know the cool thing about it is for you guys that don't have a paid TradingView account, you now only need dynamic zones, algo levels, and then the 2 a.m. Weekly algorithm weekly tool on your chart. So that's three tools now, and you have everything you need. And so you don't have to worry about upgrading. I know some of you guys hit me up about it with some concerns, but now you don't have to worry about upgrading to a paid version of TradingView. Everything is locked in for you here. All right. So again, not gonna go through too much strategy. I just want to show you, the trade setup from today. Show you how the software works. Uh, John, did you want to show anything on your chart? You want to get access to show your screen, or are you good? Look
Yeah,
at
I can just show like a tiny bit of what I looked at.
sure. Look at that reaction. Yeah, Lee. Stop
Yeah.
sharing my screen here. All right, John's gonna share his screen and show you a few things on his chart. Then we'll open it up for questions.
Um, so I'll show you where these markups came from. Uh, like was talking about inside of these dynamic zones, I mean, they're pretty pinpoint. Using the EQ, you can see the EQ, the low. I mean, if you're scalping alone, you can scalp off these levels pretty easily. But this was what I looked at. I don't have to look at all this stuff. Inside of this dynamic zone, you've got open price, 9 a.m. OGC. Here's the OG, but the 9 a.m. price is right next to it, so I don't need to mark both. You've also got equal highs inside of this dynamic zone. So you've got liquidity right below key levels inside of a zone. So when I'm looking at delivery, you can see the reactions from the levels inside of the zone. And then targets are easily attainable. As far as my markup here was the equilibrium of large zone, so the TGIF trade, seeing how we reacted around when we came back down here. But I mean, real time, you saw how these zones react. So I'll go over a lot of more strategy and stuff, but some things that I look at with these zones. So again, and this is why I like the 0.4, the little bit bigger of a zone, is because you get the reactions off the EQ quite a bit more. So here's a key level inside order block. Here's your equilibrium. We know that order blocks can be formed. So inside of these zones, things are happening. So even when this closes, this comes back in and reacts at the low. So that acts as a key level. I mean, back up to that zone. So these things are pretty cool. As far as color wise, I've been using um I like fluorescent-ish colors. So if you want to add some crazy colors to it, you can. You just click here and then you can play around with the gray. But I like that to me has been eye-opening with the zones. They just look a little bit cooler in my perspective. But yeah, I'll go over strategy and everything a lot more. But the way these zones line up with the delivery and everything that we're teaching are really nice. That's about it for me.
Good deal, good deal. All right, anybody got any questions?
Yeah, questions, comments, concerns.
Again, we try to make it as user friendly as possible for both those that use a white background or the dark mode. Um, but we also try to keep it as simple as possible. That way, it doesn't overwhelm. Like some of the tools, like as you know, the MedImp tool was very cumbersome. You had to adjust everything to get exactly the way you wanted to. So we try to have that good happy medium. Give it to us already. Yeah, as soon as we get off the call, I'll be going through the anybody that everybody's put their username in the TV username section, and I'll be granting everybody access as soon as we get off the call.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so what was the three different programs we needed on our trading view?
Uh, well, you don't need them. It's up to you. But now everything that we've given you, you now can put it on the one chart, whether you have a free account or not. That'd be dynamic zones,
Mm-hmm.
algo levels, and then the 2 a.m. What is it called? The weekly range box with 2 a.m. open.
Okay. So the med stuff, we don't even need that anymore. So should we just leave it on our trading view or should we delete it?
I mean, I always leave everything on my trading view. That way, it's better to have it and not need it, and need it and not have it. You may figure another way to use it. So, outside of what you have access to. So, I always keep access to my tools, but it's really up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
Yeah, just play with it a lot on all different time frames. I mean, on the 1 hour chart with the 1 hour zones, you'll see how we're reacting from those. So go on different time frames, see how it's working. Just get used to it before we start, because I'll go over once the educational calls, I'm going to be using this indicator a lot to go through reviews.
All right. Like nobody had any questions. So again, we don't want to keep you guys on here long. Um, I am going to end the call now, give you guys all access, and then I will drop the recording as stated, in the software video section. That way you can always go back and rewatch it. All right. So I hope you guys see value in this. Definitely test it out. Let us know how you like it. Share some of your trades. Give us any of your feedback, as you guys are utilizing it. This is version 1. Um, and like I said, we'll most likely make some changes to it going forward. As we see fit, updates, things of that nature. If you find any bugs, things of that nature, all that. So as always, hey, we appreciate you guys and look forward to seeing your results. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks for having
Thank you,
on.
thank you. Appreciate the hard work, you guys.
Absolutely. Just to